So, I figured what we would do is do a teardown video. Now this is a 67 model Super Turbine 400. Different from a regular turbohydromatic because this is variable pitch. The stator's different. I don't think it's ever been apart, but we're going to find out. Notice the 2 prongs. And it's missing this, but we're going to forgive whoever kept the speedometer retainer. It's no biggie. So, first thing we're going to do, and this is not like most vehicles, the filler tube's not wire tied or whatever to the case. So, mighty nice of them to include that. So we're going to see what this son of a gun looks like inside. And we're going to hope for the best here. Get all this BS off of it, which is good fun. So we're going to start with everything external. So where the wire bracket would be, which this one's broke, but you know, new old stock, gotta love it. Linkage is off. We'll just pull that off. We'll get the tail housing off. These are all 9/16 in an ideal world, covered in 50 years of junk. Oh, come on. Man, that stuff's hard as a rock. Amazing. God, it's gonna take a while to clean the case of this thing. This is a short shaft, or also known as a C. Don't you love it? Yeah, let me see that in a second.
Take off all the bolts, it'll help too.
It helps. Man, that stuff's hard as a rock. Would you just look at it? Ooh. That's just from sitting. Oh. No speedometer drive. So somebody's popped the speedo gear out of it.
Actually, couldn't see in there.
And this housing, one of the more common, it's a 36 to 39 tooth count. But it doesn't appear to be wore, so that's pretty awesome. So somebody's borrowed a... Now we'll let the machine get all that off. Alright. So we'll get the governor cover off of it. Man. To see if somebody else will clean this. You know how much I like doing it.
Probably gonna have to tap it with a screwdriver.
Yeah, we're gonna have to get a screwdriver on that, because that just ain't gonna be Christian. Oh, look at that. Hardly any scoring or wear. Does the valve move? That's the...
Bamboo.
Look at that. The valve moves. That's mint. That's awesome. Alright, pull our modulator off this son of a gun. Somebody's bent all to hell. You know what they call these in France, right? Junk. You're welcome. And pop our modulator valve out if she'll come out. Oh, come on now. Look at that. There's a modulator O-ring. Modulator valve. So, oh, this even has the old school pan. So if you ever see a 400 pan that's got the dimple in it like this, it's supposed to have the early style filter, which is like 64-ish through 67. So this could have the oddball filter. It's supposed to with this pan. You could put the other filter with a different tube, which we'll get into that later. Yeah, this is wild, man. I don't think I've ever seen one with the original pan. Normally they've all been swapped out for the later style on account of the filter. Of course, there's a couple places I know of you can get the style of filter this pan's supposed to have. We'll just have to see. Interesting. Man, those things are just nasty. It does. That is an oddball filter. You don't see that often. It's like 64, but pan's fairly clean, except for the little rocks that's from sitting. Interesting. So, yeah. Holy shit. Interesting. So normally on a 400, and I don't know, yeah I do, actually right here. So normally a 400 has the tube that goes in, and you know, the filter attaches to it, and it's got a bolt right here. This has a spot for it, but not drilled. So that means all of this should be period correct for the unit. So there's a very oddball filter and pan right there. Interesting. We'll pull our Park little bracket there. And these are different, obviously, because kick-down solenoid and this wire goes to the variable or the stator control solenoid. Wild. Very, very, very interesting. Because even the Cadillac, the 66 Caddy I did for that guy with one of these, man, it wasn't, it had been into before. And there's a little thing, let's see, the back side of that, we can pull that out for the pump. So there you go. That's how that works. This is a kick-down solenoid. There's that bad boy. One that takes the steel style or aluminum seal. 3/7/16. We'll pull the 1/2 inches. These are all the same length. It's just the 3/7/16 go in the smaller holes. It's kind of hard to screw that up. These you just, the governor tubes. Yeah, it's been built before because that's not a factory gasket. Which is no biggie. Old as this thing is, you would think it's been gone through at least once. That looks factory, the other one doesn't. That's odd. Different materials. So this doesn't have some of the earlier 400s have a valve in here that has something to do with being able to downshift at a third, I believe. I've got literature on it. This one doesn't have it, so that's good. They seem to work better. So that's more like what's in my 68 Cadillacs. So it should have, I believe it's 6 balls. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, it's got the 6. Because, you know, it's rare you see one there. So there's that. 2, 3, 5, 6 balls.
You call it 6 ball.
Yeah, it's all 6 ball switch pitch, man. Be interesting to see what's actually inside of this. This is the reverse servo for the reverse band or the rear band, using reverse and manual low. Always a bunch of shit inside of it. Oh, come on. Woo, doggies. Let me pop it with air pressure. Hopefully don't get crazy, but put a rag over it to... And of course it ain't going to with the cover off. Man. She'd be a little bit on the stuck side.
Oh, there you go.
Almost. There we go. Yeah, I mean the rubber ain't terrible. Intermediate servo. This is the servo for the band. Wow, I've never seen one like that. That's wild. And it's got the washer in there like all of them do. Spacer. Never seen one rounded like that. It's pretty interesting. Interesting. And let's see. That'll fit down in there. Absolutely. Center support bolt, which is a 12.38. Obviously that's the apply hole for intermediate through the bolt. So, dump some fluid out. And set the stuff aside. Pump out of this bad boy. Yeah, you can tell it's been into. Some of the bolts are different.
Yep.
They should be 9/16 on the earlies. These are all half. It's got one 9/16 there. I doubt that's factory, but whatever. Yeah, see, that's the one that takes the O-ring because it's got the recess. All these are washer bolts. And usually you can come in here right about there, get these to pop out.
Usually. Hey.
Usually. You want to make sure you don't screw the wire up. So unlike regular 400s, if you do one of these, the gasket has to be on the pump. Instead of setting it in the case, gasket has to be on the pump, and you bolt the stator control solenoid down.
To hold the gasket?
Yeah. You can't do it separate. It's got to be. It's got to be done together. And these stator control solenoids are actually, minus the wire link, they're the same as like a 425 Eldorado front wheeler that I come to discover. So like 425 Eldorado front wheel drive, it's the same thing. It bolts up the same, but the harness is shorter. So if you can't find one for an ST400, get one for a 425 front wheel drive. Word to the wise.
You have to extend the line then?
Yep. Oh. Just butt connect the wire or solder it, lengthen it. That's all you got to do. Found that out on accident. Didn't even know they were the same. There are different length bolts on these pumps, so you have to be mindful of which one goes where. You also want to look because there's a sealing ring. Yeah, this actually feels good. So there's a sealing ring on the input shaft that rides inside of there for the variable pitch. That feels pretty good, so that's fine. Not any pump wear. So the pressure regulator valve and boost valve are in there, and the stator control valve is in here. The gears don't look terrible.
No.
Yeah, man. I mean that's amazing. I mean, look at that. That's not even no wear on the walls or.
Maybe that's what they replaced.
Could be. But I have brand new ones of these. I had made. So there's a video on them. These are at, I think, 0.626, and the regular 400 are 0.727. So I have some I had made. Because nobody sells the thinner ones anymore. So there's that. So on the input drum, we can see there's a sealing ring in here, which is exclusive to the variable pitch units right there. And being a 67, yeah, dual feed hole. So we have a feed hole here, and there's another one. The one I built for my car in the 68 was out of a 65, and it only had one feed hole. These work better. Just more fluid volume quicker. So that is the difference on a regular 400 of these. It's actually got a sealing ring, and there's a little block off in here. So there's that. Let's see, you need a smaller. This is the forward clutch drum. These are on and forward. Any forward range they apply and hold. Yeah, original clutches. Pressure plate, and that's also the direct clutch hub. Original style clutches. Holy shit. And looks like, what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 5. So it's a good stack. There are differences on these. I did a video on these involving the differences. There are spline variations on these, so you got to watch the fitment. Word of the wise. And this, just like Cadillac, it's a wave steel, but it has a clutch rides direct on it, just like a Cadillac unit. And this is a 67 Buick, so that's interesting. We'll tear that all the way apart later. We're just trying to see what we do and don't have here. Your direct drum. This should be the spring and roller type sprag for intermediate.
Retainer clip.
Pull the retainer. No, it's peanut. Okay. So the cool thing about these style sprags is we see how they're spaced like they are. You could run the late 480E style, which has a lot more elements. It is a hell of a lot stronger on these. So I put the 480E, which pretty much doubles the little elements, makes them a lot stronger. You want to make sure you don't have any ring, sealing ring groove inside the drum, which this one does not. So again, awesomeness. Let's see here. I want to see, Cadillac runs 6 in direct from the 68 to 76 units I've done. I don't know what Buick did. We're about to find out. Oh, that's interesting. Even in direct, it's got a wave cushion right on, you know, a clutch. Yep, 5. It's a stack of 5. And look, factory clutches. This thing might not have been gone into before. Maybe they did a valve body mod or something, but interesting. Very interesting, especially for the age. You never know what you're going to get. So far, this is looking stellar. It's going to be an awesome candidate. Alright. So, intermediate band. That's been a little hot. This is thin too. They make thicker ones of these. So, that's going to be a plus. We'll look into that on the rebuild. So the next thing are the intermediate clutches. You find the end of the snap ring here and get that bad boy out. Usually there's 3. Looks like I'm seeing 3.
Shut up the other flashlight.
Oh, factory there even.
Factory too, yeah.
Yep, that's even old school factory GM. Holy shit. Alright. That means this thing's been sitting in a put up somewhere. Alright, so the next thing is make sure this doesn't have the set screw. So some of these old 400s, yeah, there's a spot you can put a screw. It's supposed to like preload the center support, then you tighten the bolt, and there's nothing in there but it has a spot for it. So interesting. So we got the bolt out, so now we take the snap ring out for the center support. Let's see here. I'll show you an interesting thing about this snap ring. So it's beveled, and I'll show you what I mean. So when you look at the end, it tapers. It's flat, and that tapers. So the flat goes against the center support. The taper is supposed to fit tight in the lugs in the case. So you don't want to mix that up the other one. Here's our center support. Here's your top bearing race. That looks funky as hell. Look at the bushing there.
Yeah.
Chewed up.
Hold on. Yeah. I was noticing that when you first pulled it out.
So this is the piston for the intermediates, and usually it's only got a couple springs under there, like 3. This one might have more, I don't know. We're going to find out. Yep, just 3. That's very common. I do like on 400s, whatever it is, I've got several of these aluminum intermediate pistons. I prefer them over the steel. The stamped steel that are like welded. I've had issues with them leaking, so I try to put the aluminum intermediate in all of them. Just personal preference. I haven't had an issue out of any of them. I like the way that they apply, so all good in the hood. Alright. Our intermediate shaft, man, look at that. No wear. This thing's fucking golden, dude. Wow. Beep. Oh, no, that'd be fine. I put on there's not for kids. It's all good. So this all pulls out.
Old drum assembly.
Some of these have a snap ring. Oh yeah, this case is not a machine for it. Okay. So we have the selective spacer for the rear and a reverse band, which you go opposite from the lugs when you pull it out of the case. An interesting side note on this. So, God, I've had this bite me in the ass many times. They'll tell you there's no difference on the early to the late, and there is. The later 400, 480E bands will not go in the earlier 400 cases. I don't know why. There's a difference. Yeah, so I've just had them relined. In other words, you can't get everything in. So, as far as the case goes, this is, holy crap, this thing's mint. This nut here, you can spin off. It's a 9/16, and then this little pin with the pump out pulls right out. So you can take the 9/16 off, remove the linkage and all, but we'll do that later. I'm not worried about that now. Pretty excited. This is wild. So, on to the planetary set. So, this is what sits in the case that's selective at the rear.
Slow down.
Right here. That's the rear thrust washer that everything rides on. Okay, so this washer here, which is fiber, goes between this planet and the center support. I always replace it with brass because I feel better about it. So the front planet, of course all these bearings are going to drop. The front planet in these houses the low sprag, which even on that, man, I can't believe it doesn't show any, like, usually you can see where the roller's cut into it, and look at that. That's mint. It's nutso. So, even the bushing's good. Man, we have no wobble in the planets on the pinions. No sign of, and no, that's what gets me, no sign of rust on anything.
Huh.
As old as this is, it's had to been in a vehicle, put up, used till recently. I mean, who knows? So there's your front planet. Anti-clunk between the planets so they don't bang and clunk around. You can leave it out. Personal preference, I just leave them in. So on the sun gear, it's flat on one side and tapered on the other. The flat always goes up and indexes the intermediate shaft, is the way I always set them up, and that's the way this one came apart, so there you go. And they're a real exact fit when they're actually right. So, man, didn't get any better than that. Thrust washer between the planets. Of course, the bearings. I always replace the bearings in these. All of them I've done had like half the bearings. This almost leads me to believe that this one has been into. It's got the later style bearings in it. Alright, so at this point, we come here and see if we can get snap ring out of the back of this. Where's that smaller screwdriver? Right there. Sometimes this snap ring is a pain in the butt. Like right now. Some of them are beveled, some are straight. Just depends from what I've ever seen. It's just whatever they freaking had. This one's beveled. Okay. So this is going to be fun.
You can tell the screwdriver when you get it out.
Yeah, it's just going to keep bending that. I'll take that one. Let me see if I can get around. It'll look like that would fit in there, and I don't guess it's going to. Yeah. Let me find another small screwdriver. Those bevel ones are a pain in the butt. Well, this right here will work. I still can't believe as nice as this thing looks inside. There you go, grab that little smaller screwdriver there. Oh, yeah, hold on. There we go. Alright, I got her. Yeah, this is beveled too. So if you look at it, you can see it's thinner on the outside than the inner.
Hard.
Maybe. See that?
Yep.
So, output shaft comes out the back. Yeah, man, that's great. There's your output. Now you can swap. This is what determines the length of the output shaft on the 400. So, like if you watch the videos on my the gear vendor build and the 68, I put one of these short shafts in it. Kind of had to for the floor shape and everything. Even though Cadillac normally runs that, which is, or that right there, you can see. Here's your difference. Look at the difference in length from this one to this. So I took that out to put one of these in. So you can change that in the tail housing and make these whatever length you need for whatever project it's going in. There's the outer ring gear, which they normally have some play. This one ain't terrible. Of course, I always put the different bearings in it. The bearings in this look fine. I'll replace them anyhow. I mean, none of this even looks like it's ever been hot, dude.
No.
This is just manufacturing. That's nuts. This thing couldn't have had shit for miles on it. So there you go. That's
Teardown.
pretty much it. Amazing unit. This thing is going to make a very nice. Of course, you don't let that fall out too, by the way. There's a cut plug. You can drill, put a machine screw in, pry out to get the pin and that out if you have to. There's nothing wrong with this pole, so it's fine. I will have to pull that nut, get all that out, which is no biggie. But yeah, this thing is absolutely
Other than the case being filthy.
Yeah, the case is nasty, but man, that was a find and a half for the money. I'm going to tell you what I spent on it. It was cheap considering. Cool though. It's like the probably the closest. Oh yeah, check this out. Here's your AC Delco filter number.
Hold on.
See that?
Yeah.
But
Wow.
that pan alone, that's, yeah, so pretty cool. That's the first variable pitch, switch pitch ST400 that I know of. I've taken apart that's never been into before. Like this, it's got all the old school stuff. So
Hit the like button, subscribe.
pretty awesome, you know. So yeah, we'll